Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something, well, deeply unsettling. We are opening up a terrifying case study derived straight from an account shared on the Maroon files. We're going to completely impartially break down the timeline of events reported by a subscriber named Ananya, who lived in a village near Rourkela, Odisha. We're going to map out exactly how a totally ordinary, everyday family routine allegedly spiraled into an absolute psychological and supernatural nightmare. Relying entirely on the provided accounts, we are going to examine the anatomy of a haunting, step by step.
I really like your body. I'll take you with me. Just pause and let that sink in for a second. Imagine hearing those exact words spoken to you by your own mother. Her voice completely flat, her eyes totally unrecognizable. This terrifying quote really sets the stakes for our explainer today. Because this isn't just a bump-in-the-night kind of story. It's a profound psychological horror where the ultimate sanctuary, a mother's love, actually turns against her own daughter.
Part 1, the baseline and the incident. Let's look at life before the haunting.
So, to really understand this case, we have to start with Ananya's family. They were strictly religious, strict vegetarians, and dealing with a grueling daily commute through a forest patch to care for a newborn. Consider the precise chain of events that put them in this jeopardy, because it was an exhausting cycle. They get home at 10 p.m., right? Normal stuff. But then, an emergency call comes in at 4:45 a.m. about the baby crying inconsolably. So they drive back out in the dark. It took until almost midnight the next night for the baby to finally calm down. When Ananya's brother-in-law gets home around 11:40 p.m., he offers to drive them back in his car so they don't have to face that dark forest. But not wanting to be a burden, Ananya's mother refused. They took the scooter. And that one simple act of politeness, it basically sealed their fate.
As they were crossing that isolated forest patch near midnight, the inciting incident happens. Ananya's mother drops her mobile phone on the road. Ananya stops the scooter, but her mother insists on walking back to grab it herself. And here is where it gets weird. After picking it up, instead of walking back to the scooter, her mother starts walking backward, deeper into the dark patch of woods. When Ananya finally calls out to her, her mother turns around, but she has this unnatural, cunning smile on her face. She just unties her hair, gets back on the scooter, and simply says, "Let's go."
Part 2, bizarre behavioral changes. This is where the mother Ananya disappears.
Over the next few days, the mother Ananya grew up with just vanished. And the crucial thing to note here is how wildly out of character these new actions were. That very first night, Ananya catches her mother secretly eating 4 to 5 raw eggs straight from the fridge. For a strict vegetarian family, that is a massive red flag. The next morning, her mother has this nasty, totally unexplained scratch on her neck and a pale, literally death-like complexion. But most disturbingly, she starts aggressively expressing hatred for Anyanya's Tulsi rosary and her daily religious chanting, things she had warmly supported her entire life.
4. That is exactly how many extra people Ananya felt sitting on the back of her scooter during another ride through that exact same forest. When her mother dropped her phone at the exact same spot a few nights later, Ananya felt this immense, unnatural weight just drop onto the back of the bike. Without even turning her head, she realized her mother's face was hovering right beside her shoulder, glaring at her through tangled hair, just waiting for Ananya to make eye contact so she could attack.
But you know what the most terrifying part of all this was? The duality. She wasn't entirely gone. There were these brief moments of helpless clarity. Like one night, Ananya's mother woke up screaming, just sobbing uncontrollably. When Ananya asked what was wrong, her mother looked at her helplessly and said, "What's the point of telling you? He'll take me with him." She was literally trapped inside her own body, acutely aware of some hostile presence taking over.
Now, you might be asking yourself, why didn't anyone else step in? Well, because the entity was incredibly deceptive. During the day, Ananya's mother was completely normal. Running the family shop, doing chores, chatting with customers, totally fine. But the second the sun set, she transformed. She became aggressive, withdrawn, wandering around. Because of this crazy day and night contrast, the extended family had absolutely no idea anything was wrong, leaving Ananya completely isolated in this nightmare.
Part 3, the haunting escalates. And we're talking real physical danger now. We are now crossing over into severe supernatural manifestations. The details and the accounts are intense. In the dim light of her bedroom, Ananya noticed her mother's face looked physically damaged, like it had been hit by a stone. She actually witnessed her mother eating raw meat with both bare hands and urinating on the very plate she was eating from. But the breaking point?
That happened when Ananya woke up to a drop of blood falling onto her face. She opened her eyes to see her mother hanging upside down from the ceiling fan, her face seemingly merged with another entity entirely, before she unnaturally climbed down the wall. Absolutely terrified, Ananya finally grabbed her younger brother and fled to their uncle's house.
Even after that, Ananya just couldn't stay away. Seeing her mother banging on a locked door from afar one evening, she rushed back home to help. She found her mother naked on the bed, but when Ananya tried to offer her a sorry, the mother lunged. She grabbed Ananya right by the throat and tried to strip her clothes off. In an act of pure desperation, Ananya pulled out her phone and started playing the Hanuman Chalisa. Almost instantly, the mother retreated to a corner, screaming, "Turn it off, my body's burning." The religious audio was literally the only thing keeping the physical violence at bay. Part 4. Exorcism and the Entity. The start of the spiritual warfare. So the extended family finally realizes the gravity of the situation and a priest is called in. But before the exorcism even begins, the priest approaches Ananya with a chilling, totally unprompted prediction. He looks right at her and states the exact date her mother was destined to die, June 15th, 2025. He claimed that after this date, her mother would be entirely gone. He didn't even know Ananya, but he knew exactly what kind of darkness had followed her family home. The priest didn't waste any time. He took complete control. He started opening cupboards and kitchen drawers Anya hadn't checked, revealing them to be inexplicably soaked in blood. He cleaned it right up with his bare hands. Then, he drew a protective circle around Anya, giving her one extremely strict instruction. No matter what her mother says, no matter what she does, do not step outside this circle. Finally, he placed his foot firmly on the mother's chest, angrily demanding the entity leave or be burned to ashes. The mother started writhing in pain, emotionally manipulating Ananya, literally begging her daughter to save her, but Ananya held her ground inside that circle. And when she did, the entity's demeanor flipped to pure rage. The mother collapsed, and according to the account, a dark shadow physically emerged from her body and sat on a tamarind tree just outside the door. From up in that tree, a deep man's voice echoed out, "I won't let her go. No matter what you do, I won't let her go." So, what exactly latched onto Ananya's mother during that midnight stop in the forest? What could possibly be powerful enough to mimic her, manipulate her entire family, and manifest such violent physical phenomena? According to the clinical explanation provided by the priest in our source material, it was a jinn, a highly territorial supernatural entity that lived in that specific patch of woods. The priest explained that the entity actually wanted Ananya as well, but was entirely repelled by her strict vegetarian diet, her constant chanting, and the tulsi she wore. Basically, her lifestyle choices acted as a spiritual armor that saved her from the exact same horrific possession her mother was enduring. Part 5. A tragic end. The final act of our timeline. While the priest had managed to temporarily separate the entity, he was very clear that a final puja, a concluding prayer ritual, was absolutely necessary for a full recovery. And in the days following that initial exorcism, there was this deceptive calm. The extreme, violent cruelty, it stopped. It gave Ananya a real glimmer of hope, but her mother was clearly still deeply unwell. She would stand around aimlessly, randomly take off her sari, lock herself in rooms. The family was basically holding their breath, just waiting for the date the priest had set to return for the final ritual. And then we see that tragic duality pop up one last time. It was literally just a completely ordinary afternoon. The sun was shining. Ananya and her mother were managing the family shop together, side by side. Her mother mentioned she was feeling a little bit achy and just wanted to go lie down. Ananya said okay and kept running the shop, just a normal, everyday interaction between a mother and daughter. About 2.5 hours go by. Ananya closes up shop to eat dinner and calls out her mother, but there's no response. Upon entering the bedroom, Ananya is met with a devastating discovery. Her mother was found naked, hanging from the ceiling fan by her own sari. Before the final puja could ever be performed, Ananya's mother had passed away, bringing this genuinely terrifying and heartbreaking case to an end.
We've impartially tracked this entire timeline, right from a normal family routine straight into an unimaginable tragedy. And it leaves us with a really provocative question to reflect on. How vulnerable are we in the quiet, isolated moments of our everyday lives? An entire family was unraveled, a life was lost, and it all seemingly traces back to a single simple action, dropping a mobile phone on a dark road at midnight. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning,